Welcome back to the Globe News Report. In the studio today, we have a number of influential women in the Goshen community. Julia King, a Goshen City Councilwoman, Kate Sturry, owner of Shirley's Popcorn, and Anna Groff, Assistant Professor of Communication at Goshen College. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
So can you kind of tell us more about your roles in the city and how you guys sort of got there?
I'll start. Hi, I'm Kate. I opened Shirley's Popcorn a little over 5 years ago at this point. I'm from Goshen. I love food, making it, sharing it with people, all of the things. And that's why I'm here. Represent small business.
And I'm a City Council at-large representative, and I'm finishing up my second term. And before I did that, I worked for La Casa as a neighborhood outreach coordinator, working with neighborhood associations.
I am a 2006 alum of Goshen College and of the comm department. So years later, I get to return. I have experience in church journalism and nonprofit management and communication. So it's just wonderful to be back at Goshen College.
For sure, and those are like really fun, big roles in the community. So I want to know, how important is it for women to be seen in leadership roles? I mean, seeing the three of you is honestly very inspirational for me as a woman. Like, I've always wanted to do city council. I've always wanted to thought about doing maybe a small business. So seeing women in those roles is important to me. So how does that feel for you guys?
I'd hop in and say, for me, I think the optics are important, but in politics in particular, for me, I think the policies weigh more heavily on my viewpoints than do the gender. So while I think that it helps people see kind of what's possible by seeing someone who looks like you, and I think whatever demographic you're in, that's important. But to me, for supporting women, is somebody's policy interest going to make women's lives easier? And that's most important to me.
Yeah. The three other professors in the comm department are all men, and so I'm happy to be a part of the team, and they have been very supportive, but it's also exciting to be a woman in the department.
I think I echo what you said. I don't look at it as a gender perspective. I think I look at it more of, I was raised where if you want to do something, you can do it. And it doesn't matter anything else behind that, like your economic status, what your education is. Like if you put your mind to anything, you can accomplish that, man or woman. But it has been interesting to have an older generation talk to me and say, good for you. In my age, I wouldn't have been able to do this. And so to recognize that I probably am more progress than I realize, but then also to look at it another 30 years down the road and to see where that is, I think that'll be really cool.
So what would you guys sort of say to women who are trying to get into these leadership roles, maybe having some kind of issues or roadblocks? What are some kind of tips that you guys would give from your experiences? You kind of talked about it already, Shirley, of just if you put your mind to something, you can do it. So what kind of else would you echo?
I think mentorship is really important. People talk about that in a variety of settings, and in some ways it feels like, yes, of course, get a great mentor, man or woman. In addition to that, what's been really helpful for me, and I mentioned this on the radio when we had during International Women's Day. There's a group of women in marketing, communication, and PR in the Goshen area that meet at the Electric Brew once a month. And we get together, and we don't have a mentorship thing set up. We're peers, we're friends, and we get together and sort of talk about whatever's on our mind. And it's a very supportive group of women that are looking out for one another, giving ideas, and sharing that time together monthly.
And I would add, don't wait for permission. And I think in particular politics, but also business as well. And I think a lot of places of power that traditionally men have been sort of the gatekeepers of power. And making sure you don't, like you said, you can do it. Don't wait for permission. And there are some interesting, I was reading about pragmatic bias, they call it. So if in elections, sometimes people are hesitant to vote for women because they're not sure women can win. So just stepping out there and showing that women can win. I was the first at-large representative, a woman, and I didn't even know that until after I won. That seemed odd to me. But so just getting out there and doing it is important, and I know I watched the women that came before me, and that made it look possible.
I would add also just having curiosity in life, just because you're not sure if you can or can't, go out there, find answers to the questions that you're having, and don't expect people to give that information to you. You're smart, you're intelligent, you can go for it, and the information is easier than ever to have access to. So go to people, go to books, go to the internet, just make whatever you want to happen.
For sure, and I think that's really important. I love what you were saying about just finding those mentors and doing what you want to do, just doing it. I really love that. I feel like that's a great mindset to have, and I try to do that in my own time, but just hearing you say that is very, I think, a nice thing to echo. And I want to know if there was a time where you were met with challenges, and how did you overcome those challenges?
I think every day is a challenge, isn't it? I mean, you can look at it from your business standpoint or your work, but you can even go beyond it to your daily life, right? So however, just having the mindset of how you're going to approach your day, regardless of your role, I think that's going to help you a lot with any challenge you face. Just know that you're capable.
Yeah. And I think that's the same for all arenas. You know, everybody's day, like you say, is a challenge, and I don't know that it's specific to an arena, but we all know politics is not a gentle place to be.
This is a bit hard to articulate, but I sometimes feel, while I said I'm a part of a group of women that are intentional about supporting one another, I've also experienced women who don't do that to one another and actually have this sort of competition and tear each other down. And so I would name that as something for us all to be really intentional about not doing that, because sometimes it's set up that we end up competing with each other even when we're not really trying to.
Right, because there's, in theory, not enough space.
Exactly.
Right? So if you say, but you can see, I mean, it's interesting at the city level, a whole bunch of women are running this time on the Democratic ticket. And I think that's really exciting to see.
Yeah.
We've never seen so many women on a slate as this time.
So they feel maybe empowered in a new way because they see each other, but then they're also competing with one another. So, yeah.
Right, and you
Interesting.
think like if you're not the first person to do it or you don't have that edge anymore, when in reality, being a female is not an edge. And rising tides raise all ships, right?
Yeah,
But it's so rare for people to act as though there are too many men in an arena. But, you know what
Oh,
I mean?
yeah.
But sometimes there's too many women in an arena.
I think we liked this question.
Yeah.
Even though at first I thought, oh, this is that interview question that's always so hard. Like, what's the time that you conquered your challenge?
Yeah.
It was like, we all kind of froze, and then we got into it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think a lot of the time in the role in like broadcasting as well, we think like, well, we're the girl, so we have to compete against the girl, but it's like, I want to bring them together, you know? I want to
Lift everyone
lift
up.
up Alyssa.
And people don't say
everything.
that about men, right? Like what
Right.
you.
That is
Well,
counting how many
Yeah.
men.
Even when you're talking about that, my thought is I would not be concerned about the females. I'd be like, the guys need to watch out for the women coming through.
Exactly, and just having each other's backs. I definitely agree with that. I think that's a great mindset to have, especially as like just rising up in the workforce. Just I like to remember, I'm going to take my time and make sure that I can also help those women and not stomp on their opportunities too, because it took me a while as well. So.
Absolutely, yeah. And we talked a lot about sort of mentors and this whole thing of lifting each other up. So was there a point in your life where something happened or you did meet your mentor where you kind of decided like this is the route that I want to pursue, even though it was sort of maybe a more difficult route in a more male-dominated sort of way that you could say?
I would say for me, when I was someone tapped me, it happened to be a male who tapped me, but I was encouraged to run for a district rather than at large. But because of my work in the community, I wanted the at large because I just wanted to keep in contact with the various neighborhoods. So I thought that was interesting. You know, the not waiting for permission and that perhaps saying, you know, come in at this level and you say, well, I'm going to take on a bigger challenge. I realized I would have rather run the race that I wanted and lost than just go with the smaller race that was suggested to me.
My only thought that comes from this, which is basically off of what you said, not from your question, is I remember being a speaker for an event, and I hadn't done a lot of, talks before, but I felt capable. And at the end of it, I had a number of older gentlemen come up to me and they said, I had to tell you, you are way more intelligent than I was expecting you to be. And it just made me think like, okay, if I went into this already thinking, I haven't done this before, but it'll be okay, and then hearing the feedback that other people already think that you're not going to be able to do it, like, there's already going to be enough working against you. So just equip yourself and believe, I'll keep saying the same thing, just believe in your own capabilities because there really is no cap to that.
Yeah. And do you have any tips for your younger self, like looking back at your life and how you are now? Do you have any tips to kind of like inspire your younger self?
would say the same thing that's already been said, don't wait for permission. Life goes fast. I'm a little bit older than everybody here. Life goes way faster than you think.
does,
And don't wait until you think you have everything in order, because you'll never have everything in order. Everybody's learning. Life is an ongoing, unfolding learning adventure. And take advantage and move forward.
And there's never a perfect time to do that thing you want to do.
Yep.
There's not an ideal time to go to grad school. There's not an ideal time to start a family. There's not an ideal time to get married. There's not an ideal time to start a business. You just kind of have to do it.
I'll pull the opposite of that and say, but also don't forget to live. Like when you are so focused, when you're so focused on a goal, it can be very easy to be like, okay, I have to work 15 hours a day, or I have to be one step ahead and always be going in this forward direction. But like the reality is, if you don't take care of your wellness, you're going to be forced with your illness.
Right. And I would say, my advice to the younger self it would include all of those things. It would include the balance. So I'm not suggesting to put the professional above all else either.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
Live your life in a way that feels enriching to you personally.
Because all of a sudden,
Yeah.
we'll all be 70.
Yeah, absolutely.
And very few people are like on their deathbed saying, I wish I had worked more. Like that's
Right,
not
yeah.
what people think.
People
So
don't want to achieve greater status from their deathbed.
Yeah.
They want to
they're,
have had.
they're thinking about the
their loved ones.
relationships.
The memories,
Yep.
everything, all their experiences.
So I think women, we do a good job at the work-life balance thing in our own ways.
Absolutely.
It's going to look different for different people, but I think we all try.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. I feel like this was a really good dialogue, a really good conversation. I hope that everyone watching, especially the younger generation, can really take something from this. Just go for it. Be yourself. Don't wait for someone. If you do want to do something, why not go out and do it? So thank you guys so much for joining us here once again.
Thank you. Thank you. It was very fun.
Coming up next, we'll have some more details on a local school expansion.